Here we are, nearing the end of this long journey. Like last time, I want you to keep this image in the back of your mind, and let's get started with Disc 3. Auden is alone with his thoughts, aka Devil and Child Auden. Then he finally arrives at the center of the world. The purple god calms the crowd and tells them this is God's palace. Here they have eternal peace, kind of like a heaven. A payoff so grand that it greatly outweighs the suffering they have endured. The only catch is you must have a pure heart. Once they all step inside the palace, they shall be judged. Those that pass will be taken higher into God's palace, aka heaven, and those that are too wicked will be kicked out, trapped outside of God's palace to suffer for eternity, where the green god would take the role as the devil and torture them forever and ever. Those that stand in now are the last remaining life on the planet. Someone asks, what about the servants or angels? And God replies, they will be judged as well because they have been blessed, and depending on what they do with their blessing will determine if they're allowed to stay in God's palace or not. See, God's palace is only for the gods, not even angels are allowed in. Some of them try to escape, but their bodies won't let them, and they all begin to walk into the lobby of God's palace. Auden suddenly gets overwhelmingly sleepy and falls into a deep slumber. After a while, he wakes up and everyone's gone. He is scared to walk into God's palace, thinking that he might be best if he stays outside because he's impure. He soon gathers the courage and goes on in. Once inside, the golden god tells the purple god she's gotten everyone to another floor, but the purple god tells her to go catch up with them because he doesn't want them alone with the green god. He will stay back and fight the traitorous Ray, and the purple god thought Ray would do this because his whole hurry the plans along comment. He asks Ray what was he scheming, and Ray fuses Auden's armor with him so he doesn't have to worry about wearing it, because he says it looks silly on him, and he asks Auden to help him fight the god. The purple god tells him not to help Ray, but Ray cuts him off, telling him that they was going to throw him out anyways because he's sinful. Now right here is important because Child Auden, the innocent, doesn't know what to do because he is unpure and he doesn't want to suffer. Auden on the other hand is mad because he's obeying Ray, kind of like Ray's the leader like old times, and he was always loyal to Ray. Even now he still is, and it makes him upset because he hates Ray at the same time. Then the devil tells him to fight the gods and anyone who gets in his way. Which, like how Ray is, he is using Auden to his advantage. Even the comment to the purple god stating that he'd be thrown out, like he's always done, like when he called Mila weak for not protecting her house from them. Anyways, they battle and the purple god tells Auden Ray's using him, but he will stop them both, so the other two will carry out their plans. And he shows his true god form, and they fight. And after the battle, Ray goes up to the next floor, and the purple god tells Auden everything, the same information he told Doran. Like we already know, but in the beginning there was one god, and he went mad due to people's wickedness, and the Golden King went out to slay him. The Golden King was defeated, yet he swayed the god's heart, making him realize what he'd become. He then divided his powers, giving it to 2 humans and 2 beasts, and he made 5 repents. The reason why he made 4 gods because it's their duty to serve the people to make peace, and they would have to vote on decisions, and if the votes are equal, they have to lead up to the will of life. And the 5 repents is in case the 4 gods turn evil, giving the beasts and humans a winning chance against them. Then he hid the Golden King's armor and put a spell over the cave the Golden Warrior was in. The spell was, if all 4 gods' strength combined equaled his own, the Golden Warrior would awaken in hopes that he would kill some of them to even the playing field, in case the gods turned evil. Because normally the 4 gods and the 5 repents combined equals the same strength of the first god. But with Ray, the 4 are stronger than the original. And when the Golden Warrior awoke, he wanted more answers instead of doing his task, which led to his downfall. But now Auden carries the Golden King's equipment, so maybe he will pick up where the Golden Warrior left off. He then tells Auden one of the original 4 gods sacrificed himself to make the scarce forest because they gave up on humanity, and over time the scarce forest would devour everything, ending the world, if the other gods allowed it. After his spot became available, that's when the purple god's desire made him into a god, because he was a farmer and saw how cruel the world was and he wanted to make peace. The other gods told him all of this to get him up to speed. Anyways, they tried many ways to make peace, but over time the gods became disheartened. One god made the source of life and the Lord's halo at the cost of his life. The other god blessed orbs and scattered them all over, giving them to each life, which cost him theirs. And finally, the last god broke one of the repents in 2 and made the angels guard him and used the rest of his strength to build structures around God's palace, making it harder to get to. And what killed him was splitting the repent in 2 because the gods can't interact with them, yet Ray can for some unknown reason. As the last god, the purple god wanted to make heaven by taking the life essence and 5 repents and placing them around God's palace to protect the palace from the scarce forest. Anyways, he tells Auden Ray's betrayed their plans, and he wonders what would happen if Auden heeded the call because they were there for him that day instead of Ray, which is why back in disc 1 the Golden God states that this was unexpected. He's referring to that, not Ray attacking Mila and Auden. But Ray had desire for change and took the call since Auden hesitated. And that's why when Ray took the call, the green god asked the purple god if this is what it's like to feel a desire so grand that someone becomes a god since she's never experienced that. The purple god says yes, but not like this because it was a lot more stronger than what he's ever experienced. Because Ray is in the league of his own. Anyways, the purple god became god because depending on the grant of your desire determines if you'll be angel servant or if the god spot's available. If he had waited, Merrick would have taken this position, which is why Merrick is a lot stronger and has 3 forms, like the gods. And he's mainly in his monster form that you see, and why he has such a strong free will and is the strongest of all the angels, almost godlike. The purple god runs out of energy and goes back to his true form, his human form. He tells Odin his name is Hezron and that he was so close to saving the world and using less of his strength to send Odin to the next floor, and dies. On the next floor, the golden god has left Odin living with the green god, and she's angry for Ray ruining their plans and tries to stop him. Odin helps Ray yet again, but is upset because he keeps helping Ray. Once the battle's over, she goes to her true god form and they battle again. Once she's defeated, she tells Odin it's all up to the will of life now. She comforts Odin and tells him not to be deceived by Ray, and then she goes to her true form, which is her beast form, and her name is Deborah. She states after being wronged, similar to Odin, she desired peace, and her and Hezron had the same mindset and came up with an idea to create it. Then the third god appeared, and she would be the eternal darkness. They then waited for a very long time till they found the perfect worshipper of God that they can trust, and gave Hildrick the task of finding and interacting with the Repent since they can, because he has the same goal as the gods do. See, not even the gods know the locations of the Repents. Anyways, Ray gathered the rest of them with the plans in place. Deborah and Hezron would bless the pure, and the green god would torment the wicked forever, and Ray would be the overseer. She then sends Odin outside with the lust of her strength. The green god was happy to see Ray killing everybody and give in to his dark desires. She knew he would kill them, so she began torturing the living until he arrived. You see, the green god knows that she's stronger than everything and likes to play with them like a kid playing with toys or squashing ants. She then asks him, how is he so strong? Strong enough to kill every living thing and kill all the angels and servants at once. She tells Ray she won't forgive him for ruining her eternal play time with the wicked, and that they could have tortured them together and gave into their sins. Odin aids Ray, and the green god mocks him, bringing up his past, being not be able to get away from Ray, and she even teases him about loss of Ren, calling them his first lovers. She starts to make fun of Mila, and Ray attacks her illusions, and they fight her as she goes to her true god form and is defeated. She mocks Odin, yet is too weak to keep mocking him, and she tells him she never suffered like he did, but yet she never had to suffer to enjoy watching other people being miserable. She loves evil for evil. She tells Odin it must have felt good to have let go to hurt all those people, to have the power to take someone's life and to destroy it. And that's why she became a god, to inflict pain on others and to become eternal darkness. Turns into her true form, which is her human form, and her name's Claudia. Claudia tells Odin that she would torture animals and people, but when she first tormented a beast is when she became a god. Claudia asks Odin to grant her a dying wish and ends to make Ray suffer when he kills him. Outside God's palace, Odin sees Merrick. Merrick tells him that he and Hezron were close, and that they have a theory about Ray, and he tells Odin his town was attacked, and he was going to be executed, and he decided to live and be strong enough to fight multitudes. It is then the gods appeared, and the wind infused in him, giving him strength. He wanted to be left alone afterwards, which Hezron respected, and they would talk and become close friends. Odin asks Merrick, with the infused armor, does he stand a chance, and Merrick tells him no. Merrick leaves, and Odin stands outside for a while, thinking that he is one of the last remaining survivors left in the world. He finally steps inside and sees Merrick dying. Merrick confirms the unknown theory and dies. His only regret is not killing Ray back then and stopping all this from happening. With Odin and Ray being the last survivors of the world, Ray apologizes for putting Odin to sleep because he didn't want him to intervene just yet. He tells Odin he wanted to kill most of the angels and servants first and didn't want to be concerned about Odin, and that he is allowed in God's palace because of him, because Odin is unpure. Odin is mad that Ray was concerned about him, and Ray tells him to meet him at the very top of God's palace. He will transfer him there when he's ready. Then they can settle everything at the top. At the top, Ray welcomes Odin to paradise, and Odin tells Ray one part of him wants to make him suffer, another part is happy to see him, because he still loves Ray. But he had to kill that side of himself and abandon all hope and give up on life and dedicate himself to killing Ray. Ray tells Odin he could never beat him in a fight. What makes him think this time would be any different? And then they battle. After the battle, they are still fighting, no telling how much time has passed, and we see Odin reflect on his life and things that happened to him. No more child Odin or the devil Odin or just anything, it's just Odin. He states that something was off about Ray if you pay attention to Child Odin in Disc 1, but he let his guard down around him because he didn't think nothing of it, because he was happy, and that he did love Mila, even though his thoughts tried to make him think otherwise. It hurt when Ray killed his lover and broke his heart, because those that hurt you the most are the ones closest to you. But nothing matters. His thoughts, his real parents, none of it matters because it's just him and Ray and they are dying. Oh, and one cut thing here is that in his fight, Odin would mention Ray's girlfriend, calling him a monster for killing her too. This would make Ray upset and he would hit Odin harder, and Odin would see a tear in Ray's eyes. Anyways, it seems that the battle will end in a tie and they both are dying. Suddenly, the pocket locket and Ray's necklace shatter and it saves them both from dying, because Mila casts a spell on it to protect them. It revives them and fully restores them, and Odin and Ray start to cry. Arden has a breakdown showing his true broken heart to Ray and asks him many questions like why? Why would Ray do all this and destroy what they had? Ray breaks down too, showing his broken heart as well, and Arden tells him to stop it because he can't take it anymore. And then he starts feeling a familiar feeling, and he cries for death. But the cries here are very important, especially when he's crying out to let his heartache end, because when he says that, he is swept away in a tornado. We see here this tornado-like being who states that he's been waiting for Arden to call out to him. Arden asks who is he, and he says he's known by many names, but what they call him is God. And he asks Arden what is his wish. He tells Arden he has the strongest desire he's ever felt, much stronger than he before him, and with this desire he could be strong even than God himself. He hints that him and Ray have the strongest desires than he of long ago, and tells Arden everything. In the beginning there was a void. This void wanted life, so God gave it life abundantly, which is known as life essence, which is all life in the world. And this life became corrupt, starting wars to see who would rule over who, whether it be beast or man. When man won, a certain man had a desire to reach God. That man desired to be God, and he created God's palace, a place for God to live. And as we know, he became evil and divided his strength up. And when he died, he left his will, which is the will of life, in the wind that we see that grants desires. Now to talk about this now, when you have a grand desire, the will of life of the first God is the one who grants it. If it's grand like Ray's or Arden's or the first God or even the void, it will reach this God, which is the main God. See, the first God is using the powers that this God granted him to grant wishes that make angels and servants and other gods. If that makes any sense. If not, I'll explain it in a later video. Anyways, he says that Ray's desire was much grand than the first God, which is why he is stronger than the rest, and why he can touch the God's repentance and fight all the gods and angels, which explains why the Golden Warrior woke up due to the spell cast on him. He then tells Arden the truth about the world. When you die, that's it. You go back to the void, like an eternal slumber. He tells Arden Ray someone already knew this before becoming God. However, Arden can be godlike and create and do whatever he wants. He could make eternal paradise punishment, he could end the void, he could bring back the dead, he can create peace. Whatever Arden wants, Arden holds the power of infinite possibilities. Which is why nothing in the world could kill him, not himself, not sickness, not others, which is why he would always survive no matter what came his way until he reached God. And Arden is aggravated to hear this. It cuts back to Arden and Ray. Ray is crying and he tells Arden he will tell him everything now that he knows the truth. And he tells him that him and his friends were looking for treasure. It was rumored that this treasure would help others and bring peace. Which wasn't true, it was just the weapon that he uses to this day. And this angel that he got the weapon from was a woman, and knew something was troubling Ray, and told him that she felt the same way that he did, that this world is wicked, and that if he wanted to save it, he has to seek the face of God. But if Ray's desire isn't grand enough, he would have to end people's suffering another way. She gave him her weapon and told him to end her life, freeing her from the world that man has corrupted. That's when it came to him to smite down the wicked and end the suffering of the world by destroying it. He tells Arden he killed Lost and Ren for playing with him, hinting that they did to him the same thing they did to Arden, if you know what I mean. It was around this time that he thought maybe he is so strong because he was chosen to destroy the world. He confirms that he was going to kill Arden and Mila if they didn't help him in his revenge against the Chandler for what he did to him in that prison. But when he met the angel Merrick, he remembered the angel telling him to seek the face of God, which is why he became obsessed with the church, because he changed his mind that he wanted to create a peaceful world for Mila and Arden. But after confirming the truth and hearing all the cries of the innocent as God, he knew what he had to do. Because if they made paradise and darkness for the righteous and the wickedness, history would repeat itself, because the gods could be overthrown. What if someone from the darkness became God after years of torment? It would throw the world into chaos. Or what if Claudia planned something because she would get bored after a while? After becoming God and knowing what's truly right and wrong, and seeing the world in the wicked state that it's in, and it's wicked to the core, is why gods eventually go mad. And how do you help these wicked people, always trying to go against you? Ray begins to cry, stating that's why he sought to end the world and kill Mila and to kill Arden, just to put them out of their misery. And he tells Arden he doesn't recognize him anymore because Arden's a madman. But then Ray states that maybe he's the mad one, and this is just one big scam to have revenge on the Chandler. Or maybe this is the Void's wish to end life, and they're using Ray. Or maybe Ray just wants to end it. He asks Arden how does one save the world. He goes on to say that there's energy above God's palace, made up of all the life essence of the world. It's an abomination to use the life essence, only the Void is allowed to. However, he made the life essence into a weapon, and it will fall down with the strength of all the life, because it's all the life essence gathered from all those who have died, and it will destroy this world once it hits the world. The energy out there is an embodiment of Ray's desire, and he tells Arden what would he do. Odin tells him that he understands Rey a lot more and has sympathy for him, but all he knows is fighting, and that's what's been beaten into him since he was a child, and that's what he would do. Rey turns into his god form and they fight. Rey tells Odin he's gotten a lot stronger, maybe it's because of the gods encounter, but he tells Odin he didn't need his help fighting the gods, he was just using him to help him for fun. Odin tells Rey every time he has him cornered, he always has something up his sleeve, going back to when they would train in Disc 1. Rey tells Odin he knows that the gods have a true god form, and he shows him his, which is basically angelic Rey. Odin wins, and Rey congratulates him on finally winning, saying it's not about the score, it's about who wins the last battle. He comments on how Odin looks calm with his madness gone, maybe it has something to do with the god he encountered. Odin tells Rey even though he hated him deep down, he still loves him like a brother. And Rey tells Odin he wasn't poking at him on the roof, that was Claudia just running her mouth. And that he was always jealous of Odin, thinking that Odin was strong, much stronger than himself. Remember in Disc 1 before the hunt, at the Hunter's building? Rey says, "You think I'm that strong?" And that's what he meant by it, was he thought that nothing in the world bothered Odin. But after being God, he realized what's really inside Odin's mind. Odin cries, telling Rey that he shouldn't have fought, and Rey tells him that was his plan for Odin. He never knew why Odin couldn't die, so he used Odin's rage because he would kill Rey. And Rey's done so many bad things, so Odin killing him would free him from his sins. Suffering without a reward is what drove Rey mad. He tells Odin he knows what Odin goes through in his mind because he can't get out of the cell either. Maybe it's his punishment for what he's done. He calls Odin and Mila his family and that he loves them and dies. Odin's all alone and begins to cry and break down, begging Rey not to leave him. All he wanted was for all three of them to be together to the end of their days. Odin holds Rey's dead body, telling him he should have killed him for his sins, and that he's all alone, and he screams Rey's name. And we hear God's thoughts. As the life essence begins to slowly descend to destroy the world, God says it fascinates him that Odin didn't ask for anything, but he will give Odin something before the world is destroyed, and that's peace. Now this part I want to talk about before ending the video. When Odin met God, he took his madness away and gave him strength to fight Rey, because Odin didn't ask for anything. That's why you see his eyes look different. Next, when the life essence is falling to destroy the world, it could have been hours, but no longer than a day, to fall, and during that time, God gave Odin peace. Now to Odin, however long it took for the life essence to fall and hit the world, to him lasted an eternity because of how much peace that he felt as he waited for his death, which would be a quick, painless, instant death. So Rey did do what he set out to do, and the world's been destroyed, never to be brought back again. And that's the end of Those Chosen by God. Now I greatly appreciate if you watched all the videos from beginning to end. That means more to me than what you can possibly imagine, for me to be able to tell you the story of Those Chosen by God. Now I know I've said that I would go into more deep detail and analysis, but this took a lot longer than I thought it would make, and I might do that in a separate video with the original story and maybe tell this story again, but much shorter and in the chronological order. And if you've been here from the beginning, I greatly appreciate it. And if you just watched this video, maybe, I'd appreciate if you go back and maybe watch the Let's Plays that I have and watch the story for yourself and let me know what you think about it. And if not, I basically told you everything you need to know about this story, so you don't really need to go back to watch it. But I hope you have a good one, and I greatly appreciate it, and I thank you for going along with me on this journey, and I'll see you on the next one.